Every dollar in your wallet is backed by nothing. No gold, no silver. It's backed by a promise. And that promise has been broken multiple times before. So stay with me, because what's happening right now could very well lead to the next breaking, and this time more catastrophically than ever before. For thousands of years, from ancient Israel to Rome to the founding of America, gold and silver were money. Every single time a ruler tried to cheat the system by printing or diluting the currency, the empire collapsed. Every single time. The founders knew this. That's why they made gold and silver constitutional money at our founding. But in 1913, three decisions changed everything. One of them created the Federal Reserve and started the money printing, which led to the Roaring Twenties and then the Great Depression. Did you know that FDR stole about half of Americans' gold? He did this as part of a debt default. So the US defaulted on their debt by not paying what they promised. What happened is he took Americans' gold, he made them turn it in, and he paid them the $20 an ounce that the Constitution said it was. Then, after he had all the gold, he changed it to $35 an ounce, roughly half. Then he said, we're only going to pay our debts using this new value. So they we defaulted on our debts to people who had loaned money to the US government. After World War II, the US made a genius move if your time horizon is only 80 years or so. We helped rebuild Europe and Asia, but the price was this. They had to hold US dollars. Our debt became their savings. That made the dollar the world's reserve currency. But here's the problem nobody talks about in church or at the dinner table. We kept printing more dollars than we had gold to back them up, and France started demanding gold instead of dollars. U.S. gold holdings fell from 50,000 tons to the 8,000 or so that we have today. By the early 70s, Nixon had to do something. He took the dollar completely off the gold standard, fiat currency backed by nothing but faith. So, are we going to have the same collapse that every paper money in history before us had, and every country that started diluting their coins had before them? I'm going to show you a looming trigger for this to happen sooner than you think possible. And I'll share 3 things you can do right now to protect your family. The world saw in the great financial crisis 20 years ago that the US was no longer responsible. Trillions of dollars were printed out of thin air, and our media didn't talk about it, but the rest of the world saw that the emperor no longer had any clothes. Since 2008, central banks around the world have sold more treasury debt from the US than they've bought. That's our debt. And they've bought gold instead since that time. So this isn't talking about it, this is doing it. So buyers of our debt are drying up and something big is coming. In recent years, countries saw the US and Europe seize Russia's assets and started worrying, what if we're next? Saudi Arabia started accepting other currencies for oil. China started brokering trade deals in yuan. The system is cracking. In 2024, the private economy actually shrank. That means recession. They didn't call it that because GDP grew, because of all the government spending of money that they didn't have. So $1 trillion of new debt every 100 days, that's not growth, that's a sugar high with a brutal crash coming. Last year's pro-growth administration and policies improved the economy, but then they passed the biggest spending bill ever by far. Neither political party seems concerned about this massive dollar bubble that's forming. Now add a war. 20 to 30% of the world's oil flows through one narrow strait. If that stays closed much longer, the chain reaction could be the trigger that turns a slow-moving crisis into an overnight catastrophe. Here's what this means for you and your family. If the Strait of Hormuz stays closed for very long, which is how it appears currently, the price of oil and all fuels are going to skyrocket, which means the price of fertilizer skyrockets, the price of food starts to skyrocket if it goes on long enough, and everything else. And there's many countries around the world that are going to be desperate for these things, so they're going to have to look to sell whatever they can. The most liquid, most available asset in the world are US treasuries. That's our bonds, our debt. See, up till now, there's been over $20 trillion floating around the world because countries wanted to hold these things. If just 10% of those dollars come flooding back home, the dollar's value craters. Inflation spikes. Everything you buy gets more expensive fast. And it's a devastating loop because holders of the other 90% don't like seeing their dollars drop in value, so more of them sell. Here's some things you can do right now. 1, be very careful with stocks and bonds you don't fully understand right now. This could be a very rough season. Two, own some gold. It's been real money for 5,000 years. Don't put everything in gold, but have some. Three, and most importantly, seek the Lord. These economic events are not random. God is getting the attention of a generation that has drifted. The question isn't just, how do I protect my money? It's, what is God asking of me in this moment? If you want to get serious about both your financial and your spiritual stewardship, we'll send you a free stewardship checklist. It'll help you see how your family stacks up in the various areas that you need to be prepared and maybe where are some areas that you should grow. And also, if you're not subscribed, you want to hit the subscribe button because we're going to be talking about some things I actually thought were pretty ridiculous when I first heard them. But over time, I've seen enough evidence that these are definitely plans that the US government has up its sleeve, ready to use if things get really crazy. And so we might be entering those times. So these are things you might see play out. And if they do, you want to be on the right side of them. So you want to be able to understand what might be coming and see how you want to prepare your family for that.